This is the Aftermarket Radio Network.
Welcome to another episode of Speak Up Effective Communication, the show on elevating our speaking skills in the auto repair industry. I'm your host, Craig O'Neill, and in our episode today, we're looking at a topic regarding the balance of technology in this AI era. And coupled with this, my guest today, David Boyd, and I will engage the question, will the service advisor role still exist in the future? Strange question, I feel like, because gosh, I hope so is the immediate thing. And I think it's a strange concern that people have, but we'll dive into that. Thanks for joining me, David.
Great to be here. Thanks, Craig, for having me.
It's absolutely great to have you. So David Boyd, communication expert, I guess president, CEO of Inbound.
Correct. A communication company.
Communication company specializing in phone systems. And we are going to talk a little bit about that as we move in. But first and foremost, one of the things we do now on this show is we introduce a word of the day. And I think that it's really nice when the word of the day matches the topic a little bit. And the word of the day today is affable. And I'll define that word after we hear a word from our sponsors who make this show possible. Looking to take your shop to the next level of quality service, team culture, and overall profitability? At the Institute, we provide personalized coaching that aligns with your goals of financial stability, excellent customer service, and employee satisfaction. Our priority is helping you establish significant and sustainable progress. We work with you to create strategies that reduce the stress of running your business, improve your quality and performance, and optimize your profitability. Experience the benefits of professional coaching by visiting wearetheinstitute.com/business-assessment. Hey friends, as you know, I'm a proud member of the AutoFlow team, and let me tell you, we've changed how business is done for auto shops everywhere. We support your client experience before, during, and after the work is done. Imagine this. Timely updates sent directly to your clients, branded digital vehicle inspections, and seamless communication from start to finish. That's why shops love AutoFlow. And hey, with those 5-star reviews rolling in, you'll wonder how you ever managed without us. Take an important next step and take your auto shop to the next level. Visit www.autoflow.com. Get on board with an AutoFlow trial. Are you ready to meet your perfect auto repair shop management software partner? Well, say farewell to the days of transactional relationships and hello to a true partnership that elevates your business. The #1 all-in-one solution is AutoLeap. You're not just getting software, you're gaining a dedicated ally committed to your success. AutoLeap will help you sell more, save time, and delight your customers at every turn. From scheduling appointments to creating estimates, generating invoices, managing technicians, and seamlessly syncing with QuickBooks to keep your records updated. Experience the difference a true partnership makes. Visit AutoLeap.com and book a demo today. AutoLeap, your trusted partner for success. Want to see your auto repair shop thrive? Are you looking to drive more customers to your auto repair shop? Let ShopDog Marketing be your guide. Our customer-first approach, combined with AI-driven creative content, ensures top rankings. Dominate mobile first and voice search with our specialized expertise. Reach out to ShopDog Marketing today and start growing your business. Don't miss out on this chance to boost your business. Visit shopdogmarketing.com. Inbound has exclusively served independent auto repair shops with expert communication solutions for years. Our robust VoIP platform ensures you stay connected while our industry-leading AI analytics take your business to the next level. We provide the tools you need to understand your customers and optimize every interaction. Choose Inbound for proven expertise and unmatched innovation. Visit callinbound.com and discover the difference we can make. Okay, we're back. And as we mentioned, the word of the day is affable, and that is an adjective. It is defined as friendly, good-natured, and easy to talk to, which is the perfect introduction for our guest.
I was going to say thanks from our affable host, Mr. Craig O'Neill.
We'll throw this compliment around, I think, multiple times, but it's a good word. I love it because it's one of the characteristics I always look for in service advisors today. I think that's something that you have someone that's really good at connecting with people, that is that friendly, good-natured person. Man, that makes doing business with a place that much better.
It really does. I think having that, I would call it a capability, or maybe somebody is, we would say, wired that way, that they
Mm,
are relatable. They enjoy conversation, they're engaging, charismatic, lots of different ways to describe that. But those are all good relationship building qualities about somebody. And that's what makes a great service advisor great. They
yeah.
can quickly develop that relationship and help people feel at ease. Auto repair from a customer standpoint is, I feel, inherently intimidating because it can cost a lot of money. So
Oh, yeah.
an
It's an
affable
intimidating.
service advisor is a great person to have in your front office because they do it over the phone, they do it in person, they really make people feel at ease with the whole process.
Yeah, and that's why for me it's a little bit funny that the question comes, and I've heard this from multiple service advisors that I work with. It's like, gosh, with all this AI stuff, like AI estimating, AI phone capabilities, the ability for a phone call essentially to be handled by an AI assistant, that seems at the surface like, okay, great. We're going to obsolete this role in the shop with this new technology. I don't know. What do you feel about that, David?
It's a great question, Craig. And I've heard that before. People will put timelines on that. X number of years from now, the service advisor role doesn't exist anymore, these types of things. I tend to not agree with that. I mean, who knows
Mm,
what the future holds for us, right? But at the same time, it really is about a personal relationship. I don't see a world where we can replace the human interaction. We've lived through an era where we learned the value of human interaction, but to replace the service advisor in entirety, I don't see how that is possible, mainly because we have to have that connection point. So yeah, there are tools. There are
mm.
tools that help our service advisors become more efficient, and it still requires the skill, capability, and competency of the people that we have on the front counter to interact with our customers, to help explain challenging and complex situations, to basically relate what the technicians are finding and doing to the customer who is not, a technician. They don't know what's going
Yeah.
on. I find it challenging to look at a world where AI completely replaces that role from the front office of our shop.
Yeah, and you touched on this, and we've talked about this a little bit before. We've learned this lesson, those of us who have conducted business through the COVID era. I
Right.
remember all the training started to go virtual and a lot of different things. Like you could actually just record videos and like that could suffice for training. But boy, once we could have those events back in person
Mhm.
once again, we missed it so much and it felt so good to be with people again. It was a missing component. And I feel like we're going to realize this before too long with at least the use of AI that's imitating other interactions, that's trying to communicate for us. Gosh, David, I've railed on this topic with AI for a while. A couple of topics I've done on this now on the podcast, and I don't even like it when it suggests a response in an email anymore. And I don't like it when I'm reading an email that I feel like was written by AI. I
Right.
just feel it's like inauthentic.
Well, that personal contact, that goes back to the COVID experience that we all lived through, right? And, certain parts of the country had different experiences around COVID. Some places were really shut
Yeah.
down, some places were still pretty wide open. But
Yeah.
what is common throughout is there was this sense of absence in that human interaction. So I feel,
Mm.
as a person, I almost resent when somebody says, I can't go interact personally with somebody else, right? Whether I want to do business with somebody or, go to a movie or whatever the thing is, it's super important to me to know that I have that latitude to deal and socialize as I wish. Our business interactions in the shop are equally important, I believe. So when we begin to remove that, I think AI is great. We utilize that even in my business, but at a particular level, right? I'm not looking at replacing service advisors, not looking at replacing call coaches. I'm not looking at replacing, I'm looking at enhancing. So I think if we have the right context around what it is and at some level what it is not. So I think we hear about AI everywhere. It's in everything. It's in social media. It's in your email. You mentioned that. I mean, stuff just shows up. You're like, oh, this AI predictor is saying, do this. Well, I don't want to do that. I want to use my mind, and I want to have a real conversation with a real person. And when there's something that is important for me to understand, like hundreds or thousands of dollars in repair on my vehicle, I want to actually be able to talk through this and reason through it with somebody. I don't have confidence that AI is replacing that ability for me to sit down and reason with a service advisor on the other end of the phone or in person.
Absolutely. And you have greater insight into this because what I feel is a very responsible use of AI. You're using it in terms of recording conversations and seeing that objectives are actually being accomplished. Your goal is not to replace a service advisor with AI, but it is to enhance their skills.
Right. Yeah, we do that. And I think I feel proud of what we've done around the use of AI. And I spend time talking with customers to really just what I mentioned a moment ago, explain what it is and what it is not. So we don't use AI as a call coach. AI is not replacing the company meeting, right? AI is a tool that in the context of advisor training and call coaching and call reviews really helps us drive much greater efficiency. Owners that I talk with have they have the worst time sitting down and listening to calls. Why is that, Craig? Well, it takes an eternity.
It does.
It takes an eternity, and it can be daunting, right? And it's like, oh, I got to sit down and listen to all these calls again. Well, if all I have is a list of 100 calls on my call recorder, and I got to go just pour through them, it takes 45 minutes or an hour or something along these lines to do it. This is where we can leverage the power of AI. AI can do that on our behalf, look at what went well in the conversation, what didn't go well based on certain prompts and key indicators. It's not just looking at the words spoken, but the context of that conversation. It can do all of this for us, and then it can help surface, hey, here were some really good calls. And hey, here were some maybe not so good calls, right? I would call it a responsible use of AI. This is where we can really leverage the power of it, because what does it do, Craig? It drives greater efficiency for the owner. And every owner I've ever talked with is like, I absolutely need to do, more call coaching. And they may have a call coach on their team. That's their responsibility. They may have hired a third party. And in all cases, that time to review many calls is all the same. So where we can drive effectiveness and efficiency by the use of AI is a great tool for that in our shop environment.
Oh, yeah. No, this is on the topic of balance of technology. I think this is helping with something that's existed for a long time, call recording. Call recording. We hear it all the time when we're calling in someplace that this call may be recorded for training purposes. And I've recorded calls from the shop and also even for our team at AutoFlow. I got to tell you, though, like, I don't just go cherry picking on phone calls to just randomly listen to stuff. That typically the only time that I would ever have to go and engage in a call, and it's extraordinarily rare, is if there's a problem and I need to have the full context to it. And this is something that'll give you the context of things and then just put it right in front of you. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So call recording, everybody would agree in our industry that call recording is super important. And we have the customer accountability component to that too.
Absolutely.
That, what was said, what did the service advisor say? What did the customer say? What was agreed upon? Financial approvals, all of that stuff. So we have a baseline of acknowledging that we need to have call recording. And now we go to the next level where we begin to layer training on this. There are many, many ways across the industry to do it as far as getting the call recordings. And then it comes back to this immense lift of time. That's the heavy lift, is to use this, in an efficient and productive way. We have to go and listen to the calls. That's the thing where we begin to now bring in technology on top of our technology. We're using technology to record calls, but now we bring in additional technology that drives greater efficiency. And that's where we can really, have that force multiplier in the operational side of the business, that I don't have to take an hour to do this job that technology can do in a matter of minutes.
Yeah, beautiful. See, that sort of thing I get pretty excited about. It's good use of data and information. It's helping us aggregate that information. It's helping us to move into that. So let me ask this. With this technology, there must be some feelings that people have, as it is with call recording in general. Some service advisors do not like it that calls are recorded all the time. Is this something that you run into sometimes, especially once an AI component's in there?
It absolutely is. I mean, you touched on the first part of training and coaching, which is I don't like that I'm being recorded.
Yeah,
And what I
accountability
find
sucks.
like, oh no, now you're going to be listening to it. The upside is having that in the back of the advisor's mind is helpful because you just never know what that next call is that you're going to be listening to, right? The personal impact is I don't like, maybe as a service advisor, I might be thinking to myself, I don't like the fact that my calls are being recorded because there's that accountability. But when we sit down and begin listening to calls, I think we overlook the truth that it's super intimidating to listen to myself in a call recording.
Oh,
And
I
if I've
hate
never
listening to
done
myself
that
in any
before,
recording. That's always the
right?
hardest thing you ever have to do if you're practicing something is watching yourself.
Watching and listening to yourself it can be painful. And it's kind of that self-judgment, right? So there's this emotional part of it. What I talk with people that are considering call recording or starting call recording and then moving this into development training, I said, all right, usually I'll just coach them. Listen, let's talk about what does the service advisor's first impression look like and feel like when they sit down and listen to that call? Like, oh, I sound like that. I sound awful.
Uh-huh.
All of these things. Like, I didn't realize I sounded that way. And it's there's this like imposing part of listening to myself on a call recording. And so call coaching and training, I mean, with whatever technology we're using, it really starts with let's just expose ourselves to the process first. What is our process for doing this? What's the expectation for the first time or two that we sit down? I usually make a recommendation that just sit down, listen to the calls and say, think about that. And, we'll sit down at the end of the week and listen to another couple of calls. You have to, I think, help lead people down that process or that path that, this doesn't have to be an intimidating event because the outcome is betterment and the outcome is an awareness and an understanding of the flow of a conversation, control of a conversation, and listening to myself and critiquing myself along with the help of a coach is super important, but we have to listen to ourselves in order to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard sometimes. Like, I'll give you an example. Recently, I was talking to a shop this week. I was calling in looking for the manager of the location, and one of the service advisors picked up at the desk, of course. And I kid you not, I could not understand his name that he was even
Sure.
saying. And the way that the phone call even began is just sort of like this. Yeah, thanks for calling. So this is so
Mushy,
so,
yeah.
and yeah, real mushy, just not articulating anything at all. And I think like it just felt disconnected
Mm-hmm.
out of the gate on that call. I was like, oh, and it's like I'm just like, that's gonna be hard. That's gonna be hard. So what
These are the
kind of things
things
do you see?
I see something similar, and attention to the caller is important. I think having an objective is really where it starts. The owner understanding
Mm,
what do they expect, right? What am I going to ask my service advisor to do? And then look at some industry best practices around coaching and things of this sort. There's lots of information out there. We talk about these types of things on this show and other podcasts. So I think there's plenty of information about how to establish those expectations, but really at a high level, what's my expectation as the owner of my service advisor in answering the phone? Do I have a script for them? And script that term has fallen out of favor,
it's
right?
a
But
dirty word.
it's a dirty word. It absolutely is. So, but do I have, a call handling expectation, right? What are the things that are going to be covered on that phone call?
I
I'm
like
going
that
to,
phrase a
there,
lot better than script, David. A call handling expectation is a really good synonym or something, a pseudonym maybe for
I love
this.
it. Yeah. Yeah. Hashtag trademark. I'm kidding. So what's the expectation when I'm a service advisor, I pick up that phone? What is the expectation the owner has of me? Well, we want to cover a few things around that. One, I want to speak slowly enough and clearly enough that my customer understands who they've called and who they're talking with, right? So not unlike your experience the other day, a lot of times I'll find, service advisors, they're rushed, they're distracted. There's
Oh yeah.
something else going on. They're not even holding the phone, they're propping it into their shoulder. So we can look at the whole thing. Is there, other technology we can use, headsets, this type of stuff that helps that. But I think establishing in this call review process, what are we listening for? Is it clear? Are they mumbling? Are they speaking too quickly? Are they speaking loudly enough? And these are all indicators to the caller that they have the service advisor's attention. So these are the subliminal things or the subconscious things that are being communicated to the customer when the service advisor answers the phone.
Oh,
So
constantly. Yeah.
I always encourage advisors and owners alike, let's understand that process. Before I pick up the handset, Let me just pause for a moment. I'll take that breath, clear my mind, make sure that what I'm speaking is going to be slow enough and clear enough that my caller understands they have my undivided attention. Those are the things that we can communicate in the first 5, 10, 15 seconds of this phone call that really set the
Wow.
tone potentially for the entire relationship.
Oh, you're not kidding. And I think that you really just hit on something that we really kind of skip across a lot in this industry, is that we do create the opportunity for our service advisors to be fully present when they pick up that phone. And that is not the case in most situations. Shoot, I've cited the JD Power study. It was back in 2023 when they came out with the results were declining even among the top performers in that result. And it was specifically down for the performance of the service advisor, noting that people were upset about increased wait times, a lack of advice, and the other thing was a lack of courtesy, specifically by the advisor. And I always ask people when I teach on that topic, which one of those three things doesn't sound like a busy shop? It's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. So increased wait times, yeah, you're probably pretty
Of
busy.
course.
Yep, not giving advice, not having that time or wherewithal to be able to give that advice, and basic courtesy goes out the window when they're too busy. So we're not even giving them the time to do this. And I imagine that's something that would come up if you're continually seeing a service advisor struggling to even have basic courtesy or give advice in a call. What's the most common excuse that they're going to give when that comes to light?
Yeah, I'm too busy. I've got a technician breathing over my shoulder. I've got,
Oh yeah.
a parts supplier dropping stuff off. I've got another customer sitting in the waiting area who we're trying to deal with. And I still have to get a hold of that person to sell the job so that I can keep my tech busy. 1,000
Yeah.
priorities competing for their time. It comes through on the phone. We talk
Does.
about let them hear your smile, right?
Oh yeah.
You've heard this term before, right? Let them
Yes.
hear your smile. Well, what does that sound like? My voice sounds different when I'm smiling versus when I'm a little more ho hum, right?
Yeah.
If I'm busy, I'm distracted. I pick up the phone, think, I just got to. They expect me to, say this stuff. I just blurt it out. We actually, back to some of the tools that we use, we transcribe calls so that the AI can do what it does.
Nice.
The number one indicator that I see where people are talking too quickly and too quietly or mumbling is a poor transcription of the shop name or their own name.
Oh,
And these
interesting.
are
Because
these
yeah,
are
that'd be one of the first places you see that is it has a hard time transcribing it even. Yeah.
right. You nailed it, because if I don't speak clearly and it sounds muffled and mumbly on the recording, then even the technology that is transcribing it has a hard time picking this up. So then we get these weird company names. And that's something that I point out when we look at the use of the technology. What are some of the indicators, right? What are the indicators about, control of the conversation and ownership of the conversation, but the pace and clarity of speech? What are those indicators? So we can use technology to give us some great
Yeah.
indications of even how we're doing that. So it comes back to that very first moment or two on the call, which is when I'm the service advisor and I'm answering this incoming call, am I communicating to my customer they have my undivided attention, that their call is important to me? I'm prioritizing their need right at this moment. And then we get into the other relational aspects of it, right?
Yes.
So there's a lot to
That's
unpack there,
good.
Craig.
There is. Yeah, because getting to the relational point is really the best objective that you can have. There's the car stuff, there's the advice stuff, and all these things. But if you can start developing a relationship with someone, and I was guilty of emphasizing that almost too much. It used to piss my technicians off sometimes when I was in a lengthy conversation. I was one service advisor to 6 technicians, or 7, counting some part-timers, the worst ratio of my career. And it felt like there was always somebody at the office looking for me to tell them what to do next. And I was
Right.
putting that priority so much on that person there that I was falling behind on delegating other things. There's a issue with being too busy, not enough service advisors and all that stuff, to be perfectly clear, more than anything
Right.
else. But that put
There,
a lot of stress on me, is what it came as, an eye twitch and everything. It was a really frustrating time in my career.
there is a balance, and these are all parts of self-assessment, awareness. It does come down to consistency as well when we talk about developing, right? Do we understand the objection or the objective, excuse me? Not the objection might be, I don't want
Yeah,
to do,
yeah,
I don't want to do call coaching, right?
yeah.
So do
It's a
we
good
understand the
topic though.
objective? And is there good communication between, the owner who is facilitating in some way. Maybe they're doing the coaching, maybe a third party is doing the coaching, and then does the service advisor understand the objective? We want to visualize that all ships rise with the tide. So we want to increase the water level collectively. And we do this by continuous training, right? Technicians do that. They're you and I have been at lots of different workshops, right? And training events that technicians take their personal time and owners take their personal time. They go and do these events. The service advisors are participating in this as well. Everybody that understands that value of training understands we're looking for a common goal, which is help the customer and, maximize our capability as a business. And then we have collective rewards for that, right? We all benefit. There's personal, professional, developmental benefits. There's financial benefits. When everybody's working together and participating in this process, all ships rise with the tide.
Yeah, that's a great line. I know Carm Capriato appreciates hearing that. It's been a point that he makes repeatedly. Yeah, it's very good. Yeah, and technical training is like that. It gets a lot of focus in our industry. It really does. I spent my first part of my career as a technician, and going to the technical training was kind of a key thing. But we even had our service advisors go with our techs after a while to help make sure that they're learning what the technicians are learning to a degree. But I don't think a lot of the technicians ever really hit the management classes to realize what the communication skills are involved in here. But hey, and there's shops, and I'm sure you ran into this, there's technicians answering the calls.
Right. I see it less and less, but it still happens. And typically that they're doing that because the owner wants a live person to answer the phone. So this comes back to what's happening. It's admirable, right? And then, that goes back to the question, well, do you use AI for that? If we want effectively feeling like live speech going on, maybe there's a use for technology in certain instances like this. I think that has yet to be determined because some of the tools out there, it's almost better to, kind of weigh that out. Do we want the technician to answer? Do I want a bot to answer? Or do we want to have other solutions that try to, basically we begin engaging using technology and, phone system capabilities, providing options to message a link to schedule an appointment, these types of things right through the phone system, and engaging the customer, helping them understand until we, can free up in a minute or two that service advisor to take that live call. So I do see less and less though of technicians answering the phones, but where that's happening, we have to evaluate what's the technician's objective. Because now I've taken my A tech even a GS, I've taken them off of billable services, right?
Oh, I always say that if you interrupt a technician, that creates the opportunity for an error, a mechanical error that can create a comeback. And truth be told, you interrupt a service advisor and you create opportunity for error as well. They might leave something off the invoice, fail to order a part, and you name it. Anytime there's interruptions, we talk a lot about text updates being a key thing to keep that phone from ringing for all the unimportant reasons. Handle that stuff with some passive updates. Stage the important calls so that when that phone rings, it matters, and you can even gain a mechanism of control over that. It's really powerful. I always like that method versus replacing it with the AI or having an AI thing that does it. But you've seen some of these demonstrations in AI assistance over the phone now. And why I think some people are pulled towards that is like, crap, you listen to one of those, dude, and that's better than anybody I almost ever talk to, is what you start ending up with. But depending on the business you're calling, I guess that's sort of the point. We're so easily impressed by a decent call when the objectives are handled well, because it isn't happening enough. What if we did take the focus back here and start empowering our advisors and focusing on those skills? I think that we can see the same results with our humans.
Right. We absolutely can. And I think that understanding what's the service advisor's ability to change? Do they, appreciate that? I visualize this, Craig, like putting myself in the customer's shoes. I have a unique perspective. I think I'm part of the industry in an operations capacity. I'm not a technician, and I get my car serviced at my local trusted shop. And I have the perspective of the consumer.
That's a great perspective to have in your line of work.
I think so. I know what the customer's experience is. So does the service advisor understand the customer's experience? And can they appreciate what that is? I'll use one example, right, which is the status check. And AI is not good on a status check. And what I mean by that is the customer who calls at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon saying, hey, what's the status of my car? That's a process problem, right? That's a process problem.
Yes.
And yeah, so if we are now, can we ease the level of busyness by managing the status check calls? Absolutely. Because what happens at about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I can see this on the call graphs, right? The call volumes begin to go up. People want to know what they're getting ready to get out of work. They need to know, hey, should I be coming over and pick up the car today? I mean, there's just all these questions. And where people have questions, they're going to default to making the call to try to figure out what the status is. So how can we get in front of that and be proactive in that communication? We can use technology that isn't AI, because when somebody calls to check the status of their vehicle, AI doesn't have a good way to answer that call. They don't know the implications. They don't know where the technician is on it. They may be able to access a shop management
AI
platform or
can't put you
something.
on hold and go ask the technicians. Can't do that.
No, they don't necessarily know that we're waiting on a part, or we get, there are 100 reasons why. The most important thing is to make sure that I'm getting in front of my customer. So at what time of the day is the customer going to begin thinking about the status of this vehicle? They dropped it off at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, maybe 7 o'clock on their way to work, or the night before it got towed in. Have we been proactive in calling and just providing that 90-second update? It doesn't take very long. You've done that in the shop. I've seen those status checks made 100 times, and some of the shops that I work with, they just have a policy. We got the 1 o'clock calls, and it's on their calendar. It pops up. They have to still make those calls. It doesn't take a long time, but that prevents the calls then coming in. So you can operate now within the control of when I have time to do this, and making sure that my customer feels like they're getting those updates, or a text. I mean, you can just send them certain information. I'm a phone call guy, so I tend to gravitate towards making the call. I think having personal interaction is great, but there are times too that text message makes sense. Customers can appreciate that because they might be in a meeting, right? Or they can't take a call. And
I find that they often will tell you what they prefer.
You're right.
There's been studies by JD Power on this too, and they've studied it. They've proven, of course, most people do prefer text, but still high on the satisfaction chart right there with it is phone calls. But the typical person does like a text update periodically. That's obviously something a sponsor of this podcast, my company AutoFlow, handles very well. What I'm thinking now, David, is for our mutual clients that we have out there, I need to see some of your reporting on tracking those status calls that are coming inbound to shop, see how those can be addressed. That sounds like too much fun.
and then we get back into the AI tool, right? And using AI to find out how many people are calling between 1 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, asking them the status of their vehicle repair. So there are ways, back to the original context of our conversation, is how do we leverage technology to improve what we're doing, improve the service advisor's experience? Well, there are ways to do that. What does it mean though? Is it's improving ultimately the overall customer experience. And if a customer loves the way that they've interacted with us and they feel a personal connection with their service advisor, this is the shop I trust, and there are reasons why people develop trust, they're going to become customers for life and refer people. And these are all important parts of, comes back to that very first initial phone call, what's happening in the first 10 or 15 seconds to establish that tone for the entire relationship we're going to have with this customer.
I think it was you I was talking to at a recent event, David, where that was a topic that came up. It was that it isn't even really the shop that is creating the loyalty in many cases, but the loyalty is going towards the advisor themselves. So if that advisor ended up going somewhere else, the customer is going to probably want to find where that is and go with that person as well. I don't remember if that was a conversation we were having, but
we touched on a part of that. And there's certainly the possibility that they develop these long-term relationships with service advisors. Customers do.
Yeah. Yes.
And they trust them, right? They trust them. Like, I'm going to take my car to this guy. I'm not going to take it to XYZ Auto Repair. I'm going to take it to Brian. Why? Because I trust Brian.
Yes.
So understanding that is super important. And then having the systems and process in place, much of what you do, frankly, is continuing to develop that trust across the whole business, right? So it's important that Brian, I'm just picking that name, Brian is the point of contact. But when and if Brian retires, leaves, goes somewhere else, moves across the country, whatever, people don't stay at jobs in forever. What are we doing as a business? So the next time they call in and talk with Jim, they're going to immediately feel that connection there. And whatever the response would be about where Brian has gone. But now I've got this new connection point, and I feel like there's this familiarity with the person. I've got the information in front of me. I know our history together. And these are things now that become part of the culture of my shop and the front office of my shop across the service advisors. And it comes back to this training point.
And how good would it be if Brian makes the introduction to Jim?
That'd be great. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's
And
good stuff.
you think about too, when there's ownership change, there's certainly, there are different ways to manage ownership change, but a lot of times I do see personal communications from the seller that go out to the customers. And these are, hey, as a seller, I'm at this point in my career. Maybe this is their exit. They're moving on. They've retired, whatever it happens to be. I've hand selected this buyer. And
Ooh,
why are they doing
good.
that? What they're doing this because they want to transition the trust. So
Yes.
that's important.
Oh,
Hey,
it's
I
super
can't do that.
important. There's so much intense consolidation right now in the business all around us. Shops being bought up by larger groups all the time. That sort of thing would be very powerful. Very powerful. Hey, David, this is really good stuff. I feel like we've nailed each one of these points and have identified multiple other points of conversation that we could dive down into from here. Oh my gosh. Oh man,
It's been a fun conversation.
This is good. It's like I was saying, it's friendly, good-natured, and easy to talk to.
Affable.
You got it. Yeah. Well, hey, folks, thank you so much for listening here. And I want to say, if you want to reach out with something, email us here at the show. Speak up at craigoneil.net. O'Neill with 2 L's. That's ONEILL.net. We appreciate hearing from you on anything that helps. Or if you want to learn more about communication topics that interest you, perhaps make a suggestion. And if you want to just come on the show and talk about a topic that is interesting to you, hey, I'm all ears on that as well. I would love to talk to you. Now, remember to listen up to the other shows on the Aftermarket Radio Network, Carm Capriato's Remarkable Results Radio, the podcast that started all the podcasts in the auto repair industry. And then there's Diagnosing the Aftermarket A through Z with Matt Fonslow, Business by the Numbers with Hunt Demarest, the Auto Repair Marketing Podcast with Brian and Kim Walker, and the Weekly Blitz with Coach Chris Cotton. And once again, thank you to our sponsors, and thank you, David, for being a sponsor of this program as well. Thank you, all the listeners, for joining us. Now get out there, listen up, speak up, and empower those advisors. But hey, I'll say this anyway. So, David, I'm looking forward to hanging out with you at the Institute Summit in Jacksonville, Florida. That'll be on February 5 through 9, I believe, is the dates I'll be there.
Yep, the 6th through the 8th is the actual event. And I'll be there early. 5th through the 9th. Absolutely. Get in early, spend some time in Amelia Island. Great lineup of presenters.
Oh my gosh, that lineup. I'm so excited to go see some great speaking at this event. I can't wait. Yes. We'll have to do a little download on that afterwards. It'll be fun.
I'll say, Craig, too, for your listeners that are hearing this after the event in Amelia Island, hosted by the Institute for Automotive Business Excellence, has been completed. Reach out to the Institute. Great group. They do a lot of good coaching.
They do. Yep. Mm-hmm. It's been a pleasure working with them. Wonderful sponsors of the podcast. Couldn't do it without them. Awesome. Thanks, David.
You've been listening to Speak Up, Effective Communication with Craig O'Neill on the Aftermarket Radio Network. Follow Craig on your favorite podcast listening app and on his YouTube channel. Let him know what you'd like him to speak up about. Craig is all for advancing the automotive service aftermarket.